The observation deck smelled like burnt copper and regret. Commander Vrath of the Korvian Expeditionary Fleet stood before the transparent alloy viewport, his 3 eyes narrowing at the small human child sitting cross-legged on the floor of the containment cell below. Beside her, that ridiculous creature the humans called a honey badger lay curled up, seemingly asleep. This is what delayed our invasion by 6 months? Vrath clicked his mandibles in disgust, turning to address the science officer. One juvenile human and her pet. Science Officer Krell shifted uncomfortably, his scales rippling with nervous colors. Sir, the reports from Outpost 7 were quite clear. The child should not be underestimated. Reports. Vrath spat the word like poison, written by cowards who probably saw their own shadows and ran screaming. He tapped the viewport with one clawed finger. Look at it, Krell. It cannot even reach the control panel without standing on its hind legs. The child, who appeared to be no more than 8 standard rotations old, was humming something. Her dark brown hair fell in tangled waves around her shoulders, and her eyes, those disturbingly forward-facing human eyes, stared at absolutely nothing in particular. The honey badger's ear twitched. What is the creature's designation again? Vrath asked, pulling up a holographic display. The humans call it Mister Chomps, sir. Mister Chomps. Vrath laughed, a sound like grinding metal. How adorably pathetic. And the child? Her identification chip reads Emma Thornton, age 7.3 standard years. Vrath circled the viewing platform slowly, his officer's cape dragging behind him with deliberate theatrical flair. He had spent 17 years clawing his way up the military ranks, had personally overseen the subjugation of 4 planetary systems, and had his portrait commissioned 3 times. He was not about to let his legacy be tarnished by fear of a human child and her ridiculous mammal. Activate the communication system, he ordered. A subordinate, young and eager to please, scrambled to comply. The speakers crackled to life. Human child, Vrath announced, his voice booming through the containment cell. I am Commander Vrath of the Korvian Imperial Fleet. You are a prisoner of war. Your cooperation will determine whether you receive standard rations or subsist on nutrient paste. Emma stopped humming. She looked up slowly, directly at the viewport, even though it was supposed to be one way. Her eyes found Vrath's position with unsettling accuracy. That's a very long title for someone who's about to have a really bad day, she said, her voice clear and utterly unbothered. Several officers gasped. One dropped his datapad. Vrath felt his blood temperature rise, which was never a good sign for anyone nearby. You dare address me with such insolence? Perhaps you do not understand your situation, human. You are alone. Your planet burns. Your military forces scatter. Like frightened insects, you have nothing and no one. I have Mister Chomps, Emma replied, scratching the honey badger behind its ears. The creature stretched, yawned, revealing teeth that seemed far too large for its body, and settled back down. That pitiful beast? Vrath laughed again, harder this time, and his officers joined in with nervous chittering sounds. What will it do, child? Bite my ankles? I have crushed skulls with my bare hands. I have watched entire civilizations kneel before me. Your pet is nothing but protein waiting to be recycled. Emma tilted her head. You should probably apologize. Apologize? Vrath's voice rose to a near shriek. I am a commander of the Korvian fleet. I apologize to no one, least of all to mewling human offspring and their absurd animals. That creature is a joke, a cosmic punchline. Look at it. It does not even have proper scales or defensive plating. It is soft, weak, worthless. The honey badger opened one eye. Sir, Krell whispered, urgently, his scales flashing warning colors. The biological readings are spiking. I do not care about your readings. 8. Vrath slammed his fist against the control panel, leaving a significant dent. This ends now. I will not be mocked by primitive mammals. Open the containment door. I will personally demonstrate to this child what happens when you disrespect the Korvian Empire. Commander, the protocols clearly state that the containment field should remain active at all times when dealing with human-bonded fauna. The previous commander's final report specifically mentioned not to provoke the animal designated Mister Chomps under any circumstances. The previous commander was a fool who died of a heart failure. Vrath roared. Probably from his own incompetence. Open the door or I will demote you to waste recycling duty. Krell's hands trembled as he entered the override codes. The massive containment door began to slide open with a hiss of hydraulics and the smell of recycled air. Emma raised one finger. Just one. She held it up in the air like she was testing wind direction, or counting something only she could see. Vrath descended the stairs to the containment level, his ceremonial armor clanking with each step. Behind him, his officers followed at a respectful distance, none of them looking particularly enthusiastic about the situation. The hallway was narrow, lined with more transparent alloy panels, and the lighting cast everything in harsh blue tones. Now then, human child, Vrath said, stepping into the containment cell. The space was roughly 30 feet square, with a sleeping platform, a waste disposal unit, and absolutely nothing else. Basic prisoner accommodation. Let me educate you about respect, about power, about the natural order of the universe. Emma's finger remained raised. Mr. Chomps stood up. Sir, Krell called from the doorway, his voice cracking with barely suppressed panic. The biometric readings are now at critical levels. Whatever that creature is producing chemically, it is not something our databases recognize. I strongly suggest immediate evacuation of the containment sector. Coward, Vrath muttered. He took another step forward, looming over Emma with all 7 feet of his height. Your pet does not frighten me. Nothing frightens me. That's really sad, actually, Emma said quietly. Fear keeps you alive. Mr. Chomps taught me that. The honey badger moved. Understand something about honey badgers. They are not large animals. They do not have venom like a serpent or claws like a jungle predator. They do not possess size or strength that would impress anyone looking at raw statistics. What they have is something far more terrifying. They have absolute, unwavering, mind-bending determination combined with a complete absence of anything resembling survival instinct or self-preservation. Evolution, in its infinite wisdom, or perhaps in a moment of cosmic irony, created an animal that simply does not care about anything. Lions? Irrelevant. Cobras? Minor inconvenience. Pain? What's that? Death? Get in line. And this particular honey badger had been raised by Emma since it was a cub, found orphaned during the first Korvian attacks. They had survived together for 6 months through occupied territory, through bombing runs and patrol sweeps, through situations that had broken trained soldiers. Emma had fed it, protected it, loved it, and in return, Mr. Chomps had imprinted on her with the intensity of a collapsing star. The first thing that registered in Vrath's consciousness was teeth. Specifically, teeth in his ankle, right through his ceremonial armor, which was supposedly rated to withstand plasma rounds. The second thing was the sound. Honey badgers, when truly committed to violence, make a noise that can only be described as what nightmares would sound like if they could scream. It is a rattling, hissing, snarling cacophony that triggers every single prey instinct coded into DNA across 1,000 worlds. Vrath screamed. It was not a dignified command scream or a battle cry. It was pure, primal terror. Get it off! Get it off me! He tried to kick, but Mr. Chomps had already climbed higher, claws digging through armored joints that had cost the military-industrial complex millions to design. The honey badger found exposed flesh and bit down harder. Officers rushed forward, then immediately rushed backward when Mr. Chomps turned his head, still attached to Vrath's leg, and made eye contact with them. His eyes held no anger, no rage, nothing so complex as an emotion. They held purpose. Pure, crystallized, terrible purpose. Shoot it! Vrath was hopping on one leg now, trying to reach his sidearm while simultaneously trying to dislodge 30 pounds of furious mammal. Someone shoot it. Sir, we cannot fire weapons in the containment cell. The ricochets would kill us all, Krell shouted from the safety of the doorway. Mr. Chomps released the ankle, and for one blessed moment, Vrath thought it was over. Then the honey badger jumped, landed on his chest plate, and went directly for his throat. 3 eyes suddenly seemed like a disadvantage when one of them was staring directly at incoming teeth. Vrath fell backward, crashing into the transparent wall hard enough to crack it. His hands scrabbled at the animal. But honey badger skin is loose and thick, evolved specifically to make them impossible to grip. Every time Vrath thought he had a hold, the creature would twist and he would be grabbing nothing but air and fur. Mr. Chomps, Gentle mode, Emma called out. The honey badger paused, looked back at her, then returned his attention to Vrath. Gentle mode apparently meant, do not remove major organs immediately. What followed was a masterclass in sustained violence. Vrath tried to run. The honey badger rode him like a mechanical bull, claws anchored in armor gaps, teeth finding any exposed flesh with surgical precision. Vrath tried to grab the creature. His hands came away bloody, and the honey badger had somehow moved to his back. Vrath tried to slam against the wall. The honey badger braced, absorbed the impact, and bit harder. Officers watched in horrified fascination as their supreme commander, veteran of countless battles, decorated hero of the Empire, was systematically dismantled by an animal that weighed less than a standard military backpack. Deploy the neural disruptors, Vrath shrieked, his voice gone high and thin with panic. Blood was now streaming from multiple wounds, and his ceremonial armor looked like it had been through a shredding machine. Sir, the neural disruptors will affect you as well, an officer protested. I do not care. Do it now. Emma sighed and stood up, walking calmly toward the chaos. Mr. Chomps, come here please. The honey badger immediately released Vrath and trotted over to Emma, who picked him up and cuddled him like he was a stuffed toy. His snout was red, with blue Korvian blood, but his eyes were calm now, satisfied. Vrath collapsed against the wall, gasping for air through his respiratory slits. His armor was destroyed, hanging in ribbons. His skin showed dozens of bite marks and deep scratches. One eye was swelling shut, and his ankle bent at an angle that suggested several broken bones. You, he wheezed, pointing a trembling claw at Emma. You are a demon. That thing is a demon. He's actually really sweet once you get to know him, Emma said, scratching Mister Chomps under his chin. The honey badger made a sound suspiciously close to purring. You just made him mad by being rude. That's your own fault. Krell slowly entered the containment cell, a medical kit in his hands. Commander, we need to get you to the medical bay immediately. You have lost significant blood volume, and several of these wounds require regenerative surgery. Vrath tried to stand, failed, and slumped back down. His remaining functional eyes stared at Emma, with a mixture of fear, rage, and something that might have been grudging respect. What are you? I'm Emma. This is Mister Chomps, and you really should have listened when I told you to apologize. She hugged the honey badger closer. Want to see what happens when I give him attack mode? No. Every officer in the room, including Vrath, shouted simultaneously. Emma smiled. It was not a particularly nice smile. Then maybe we should talk about letting my planet go. Because Mister Chomps has about 200 cousins back on Earth, and they are nowhere near as friendly as he is. Somewhere in the background, an alarm began to wail, signaling incoming human military vessels. The resistance had apparently been more organized than the Korvians had assumed, and somehow, during 6 months of occupation, the humans had been studying Korvian technology, adapting it, weaponizing it. Vrath watched as Emma walked back to her corner of the cell and sat down, Mister Chomps settling into her lap once more. The honey badger yawned again, showing those terrible teeth, and closed his eyes. Medical bay, Vrath muttered, letting 2 officers haul him upright. Now, as they dragged him from the containment cell, leaving a blue blood trail behind, Vrath made a mental note. First, survive the medical procedures. Second, recommend immediate evacuation of all Korvian forces from human space. Third, submit formal documentation that humans were to be classified as Category 5 threats, not for their technology or their military might, but for their absolute insanity in terms of what they chose to keep as pets. Behind him, Emma started humming again. The same tune as before. Mister Chomps opened one eye, watching the Korvians retreat, and if a honey badger could smirk, he absolutely would have. The observation deck cleared rapidly after that. Officers filed out, speaking in hushed whispers, comparing notes, and quietly updating their personal wills. Krell remained for a moment, staring down at the child and her companion. What did we actually capture? He asked himself, knowing no one was around to answer. Emma looked up at the viewport, seeing through it somehow, and waved. Krell left very quickly after that, and he did not look back. Admiral Thex arrived on the command ship exactly 14 hours after Commander Vrath's humiliating encounter with what military reports were now calling the demon mammal incident. Thex was old by Korvian standards, with scarred scales that had dulled to a deep gray, and eyes that had seen 3 successful planetary campaigns. She did not tolerate nonsense, incompetence, or excuses. She especially did not tolerate her commanders being hospitalized by small furry animals. "Explain," Thex said, standing in the medical bay where Vrath lay wrapped in regenerative bandages. Machines beeped rhythmically around him, monitoring his 17 different organ systems. "Use small words. My patient's expired somewhere between the 5th cup of quart, stimulant brew and reading your preliminary report." Vrath, to his credit, did not try to sugarcoat anything. "I underestimated the human child's companion. It was a tactical error." "Tactical error." Thex repeated the words slowly, as if tasting something particularly foul. "Dodd, you were nearly killed by an animal that weighs less than a standard ration pack. Our entire invasion force is now stalled because half the crew refuses to go near containment level. 3 officers have requested transfers to deep space reconnaissance duty, which, might I remind you, has a 70% mortality rate. They would rather face the void than that child and her pet. With respect, Admiral, you had to see it to understand." Krell offered from his position near the doorway. The creature moved with efficiency I have never witnessed. No wasted motion, no hesitation, just violence distilled into its purest form. Thex turned her attention to the science officer. "I read your biometric analysis. You claim the animal produces pheromones that trigger panic responses across multiple species." "Not exactly, Admiral. The pheromones are standard for Earth mammals. What triggers the panic is something else entirely. Call it an aura, a presence. When that honey badger decides violence is necessary, every prey instinct in the galaxy simultaneously recognizes a predator without limits." "Superstitious nonsense." "Perhaps," Krell acknowledged, "but 17 separate species currently serving in our fleet all reported the same physical reaction when exposed to visual recordings of the encounter. Elevated heart rates, respiratory distress, involuntary evacuation of waste products in several cases." Thex was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Outside the medical bay, the command ship hummed with activity, but it was subdued, nervous. Word had spread faster than a plasma fire through every deck and corridor. The humans had a secret weapon, and it wore fur and liked belly rubs. "Where is the child now?" Thex asked. "Still in containment. She has made no attempt to escape. She requested food, water, and something called peanut butter for her companion. We complied." "We complied." Thex laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We are the Korvian Empire. We have subjugated 47 worlds. We brought the crystalline collectives of Hexthar to their knees, and we are taking meal requests from a 7-year-old. In our defense, Admiral, no one wanted to be the person who said no," Vrath muttered from his medical bed. Thex walked to the viewport overlooking the medical bay and stared out at the stars beyond. The human planet below them, designated Target 7 in military documents, looked peaceful from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Nothing about it suggested the absolute chaos that had defined the last 6 months of occupation attempts. The humans had proven more resilient than anticipated. Their technology was inferior, their military fragmented, their defenses laughable on paper, but they kept fighting with a stubbornness that bordered on psychotic. When the Korvians destroyed their weapons factories, humans threw rocks. When the rocks ran out, they threw harsh language and improvised explosives. When those were gone, they apparently just threw their pets at you. "I am going to speak with this child myself," Thex announced. "Admiral, I strongly advise against that approach," Krell said immediately. "We still do not fully understand the parameters of the threat." Noted and ignored. "If we are going to lose this planet, I want to understand why. Prepare the containment cell, maximum security protocols, and someone find out what this Emma Thornton wants." 20 minutes later, Thex stood outside the containment cell, wearing full combat armor instead of her ceremonial uniform. She carried no weapons. Weapons, she had been informed, only made the honey badger more interested in you. Apparently Mister Chomps viewed armed individuals as a combination of threat and entertainment, both of which he addressed with equal enthusiasm. Emma sat exactly where she had been sitting for the past 14 hours, cross-legged on the floor, with Mister Chomps sprawled across her lap like a very dangerous house cat. She was drawing something on the floor with a piece of charcoal someone had given her, presumably because it was the least threatening object available. Emma Thornton, Thex said through the communication system. I am Admiral Thex. I command this fleet. May I enter? Emma looked up, surprised. You asked permission, that is new. I am capable of learning from others' mistakes. May I enter? Sure. But leave your pride outside. Mister Chomps can smell arrogance, and it makes him bitey. Thex entered the containment cell slowly, hands visible, movements deliberate. The honey badger raised his head, watching her with black eyes that seemed far too intelligent for something that supposedly operated on pure instinct. His nose twitched, scenting the air, analyzing threat levels with senses humans had barely begun to understand. Your companion is impressive, Thex said, settling down on the floor across from Emma. The posture felt wrong, undignified, but something told her that power dynamics meant nothing here. I have never seen Commander Vrath run before. He fought against the Hexthar Mind warriors without flinching. But your Mister Chomps had him screaming in seconds. Vrath was mean, Emma said simply, returning to her drawing. It appeared to be a picture of Earth, with stick figures holding hands around it. He called Mister Chomps worthless. Nobody calls my friend worthless. I see. And if I were to call your friend valuable instead? Remarkable? Perhaps even terrifying in the most respectful way possible? Then Mister Chomps would probably just watch you instead of eating you. He is a very good judge of character. Thex studied the child carefully. 7 standard years old according to identification chips, but her eyes held something ancient. Weariness. Loss. The specific type of exhaustion that came from surviving when survival should have been impossible. How long have you been running? Since the sky turned red with your ships. That was 183 days ago. I counted. Emma added another stick figure to her drawing. My mom said to hide. My dad said to run. They both said to stay alive no matter what. So I stayed alive. And your parents? Your soldiers killed them on day 4. During the Market District bombing. Emma's voice remained flat, factual, but her hand tightened slightly on the charcoal. I was supposed to be with them. But Mister Chomps bit through my backpack strap and dragged me into a tunnel. He knew before the missiles hit. Animals always know. Mister Chomps made a low sound, not quite a growl, but something that conveyed acknowledgement. His eyes never left Thex. I am sorry, Thex said. And meant it. War was war, conquest was conquest. But there were some lines that, once crossed, left stains nothing could wash away. For what small consolation it offers, most Korvian military doctrine prohibits civilian targeting. Someone violated protocol. Your apology does not bring them back. But I appreciate you trying. That is more than Vrath did. Emma finished her drawing and sat back. Why are you here, Admiral? Really here? Not just the official reason. Thex appreciated directness. Because this invasion is failing, and I want to understand why. On paper, humans should have surrendered months ago. Your military is scattered. Your infrastructure is damaged. Your supply lines are broken. Yet somehow, resistance grows stronger every day. And now we have you. A child who has survived 6 months in occupied territory with nothing but a honey badger for protection. You should be dead or captured. Instead, you infiltrated one of our most secure facilities and got yourself deliberately caught. Emma smiled. It was the same unsettling smile she had given Vrath, the kind that suggested knowledge beyond her years. You are smarter than your commander. That is good. Maybe we can actually talk. I am listening. You want to know why humans keep fighting? Why we do not just give up and accept conquest? Emma gestured at her drawing. Because this is ours. Every tree, every ocean, every mountain and valley. Our ancestors fought and died to make this world home. Our history is written in this soil. You can destroy our cities, kill our leaders, blow up our monuments, but you cannot take away what Earth means to us. We will fight you with sticks and stones if necessary. We will fight you until the sun burns out. Because this is not just territory to us. This is home. Sentimental attachment to a rock floating in space, Thex observed, but without mockery. Many species share this feeling initially. It fades once they understand the benefits of empire. Does it? Or do they just get tired of dying? Emma leaned forward. Here is what you do not understand about humans, Admiral. We are really, really good at being stubborn. Some people call it determination. Others call it stupidity. But when we decide something matters, we commit absolutely. Like Mister Chomps here, he is a honey badger. Do you know what honey badgers do in nature? Enlighten me. They fight lions. They eat cobras. They break into beehives despite being stung hundreds of times because they want the honey inside. They do not care about size or strength or venom or pain. They just want what they want, and nothing will stop them. Evolution made them perfect little tanks of pure stubborn determination. Emma scratched behind Mister Chomp's ears, and the honey badger actually purred. Humans looked at that and thought, yes, that is the energy we vibe with. That is the spirit animal we deserve. Thex considered this. You are saying humans are collectively insane. Completely. But we are insane in a very specific, very focused way. Emma's expression turned serious. And we taught Mister Chomps everything we know about fighting back. He is not just a honey badger anymore. He is a honey badger who understands tactics, who comprehends strategy, who has been trained and loved and bonded with a human who lost everything. Do you understand what that means? It means, a new voice interrupted from the doorway, that you accidentally created the perfect symbol for human resistance. Thex spun around. Standing in the entrance, wearing mismatched armor pieces and carrying weapons that looked cobbled together from 6 different technologies, was a human woman in her 30s. Her hair was tied back in a practical braid, and her eyes held the same weariness Emma carried, aged up 20 years. Captain Diaz of the Earth Defense Remnant. The woman introduced herself, aiming her weapon directly at Thex. Thank you for keeping our secret weapon safe, Admiral. We have been tracking Emma for 3 days, waiting for the right moment to extract her. Behind Diaz, more humans poured into the corridor, weapons raised, moving with the confident precision of soldiers who had nothing left to lose. Alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the ship. Thex raised her hands slowly. This was a trap. Not a trap, Emma corrected, standing up with Mister Chomps in her arms. An opportunity. See, we needed someone important to actually listen. Lower-level commanders like Vrath are too stupid and too arrogant. But an admiral? Someone with actual authority to make decisions? That is worth getting captured for. You let us take you, Thex realized. Well, Mister Chomps and I could have escaped any time, but that would not accomplish anything strategic. We needed to get inside your command ship. We needed to demonstrate what happens when you disrespect humans and their companions. We needed to plant a seed of doubt. Emma walked toward Captain Diaz, who immediately moved to shield her. And we needed to show you that we have weapons you cannot defend against. Weapons you do not understand. Weapons that exist in the bond between species. Mister Chomps yawned, showing those terrible teeth again. Thex felt the situation spiraling out of control. You are bluffing. One honey badger, no matter how effective, cannot stop an entire invasion fleet. One honey badger? No, probably not. Captain Diaz smiled, and it was sharp. But we brought friends. Bridge, execute, Operation Badger Storm. The ship lurched. Explosions bloomed across multiple decks. Thex's command interface lit up with damage reports, breach alerts, and something that looked like viral code spreading through the navigation systems. What have you done? We studied your technology for 6 months, Diaz explained, moving toward the exit with Emma protected in the middle of her squad. While you were busy bombing cities and congratulating yourselves, we were stealing your data, hacking your networks, learning everything about Korvian military hardware. And then we waited. Waited for you to capture something precious. Waited for you to bring it aboard your most important vessel. Waited for you to concentrate your command structure in one location because you were so confident in your superiority. Emma hugged Mister Chomps tighter. Humans are good at playing dead until the moment we strike. We learned that from possums. And when we strike, we commit fully. We learned that from honey badgers. The honey badger in question fixed his black eyes on Admiral Thex one final time. The message was clear. We are leaving now, and if you try to stop us, I will demonstrate exactly what gentle mode was not. Thex let them go. Not because she was afraid, though the memory of Vrath screaming definitely influenced her decision. but because she recognized defeat when it stared her in the face with perfect clarity. The humans had outplayed them, used their arrogance against them, turned a capture into an infiltration. All units, cease fire and stand down. Thex ordered into her communicator. Let them evacuate. Admiral, Krell's voice crackled through. We can still stop them. We have superior numbers. And they have a honey badger, viral code in our systems, and nothing left to lose. Calculate the cost, Krell. Really calculate it. Silence on the other end as Krell ran the numbers. Projections suggest a 74% casualty rate if we attempt engagement, and that is if the honey badger does not get loose in the ship. Exactly. Let them go. Thex watched through the security feeds as the human team fought their way to an airlock, boarded a stolen shuttle, and launched before Korvian forces could organize an effective response. Emma waved from the shuttle window, and beside her, Mister Chomps pressed his paws against the transparent material, as if making sure the Korvians got a good final look at him. The shuttle vanished into the atmosphere, cloaked by technology that should not have worked with human power systems but somehow did because humans apparently fixed things with determination and sheer stubbornness. Status report, Thex demanded. Krell appeared on screen, looking harried. 37 systems compromised by the viral infiltration. Navigation is corrupted. Weapons targeting is locked. Life support is fluctuating. We are essentially floating in orbit with no offensive capabilities. Repair estimates suggest minimum 3 weeks before we can resume any military operations. 3 weeks. Thex felt very tired suddenly. And the human resistance? Mobilizing across every continent. Whatever signal Emma's capture sent, it has unified fractured resistance cells. They are coordinating attacks on every Korvian position simultaneously. Sir, we are being overwhelmed by an enemy that we supposedly defeated months ago. Thex sank into the commander's chair that Vrath would no longer need. Recall all ground forces. Evacuate to orbit. Prepare the fleet for withdrawal. Admiral, the High Command will demand justification for retreating from a primitive world. Then I will tell them the truth. We underestimated the humans. Not their technology, not their military, but their spirit, their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to turn weakness into strength. Thex looked at the image of Emma and Mister Chomps frozen on her screen. And I will tell them about the honey badger. About what happens when you mock something small and assume it cannot hurt you. About what happens when you fail to respect an enemy's bonds. She closed the file and began drafting her official report, knowing it would probably end her career. But some truths were worth telling, even at personal cost. Below, on Earth, in a hidden bunker that smelled like recycled air and hope, Emma Thornton sat with Mister Chomps curled in her lap. Around her, resistance fighters celebrated their first major victory against the occupation. Captain Diaz raised a toast to the bravest infiltrator in human history. To Emma and Mister Chomps, Diaz proclaimed, who proved that size does not matter, that spirit beats technology, that humans do not surrender. Everyone cheered. Emma blushed and tried to hide behind her hair. Mister Chomps, completely unbothered by the noise and attention, simply dozed. He had done his job, protected his human, made bad people reconsider their life choices. Now he could rest, secure in the knowledge that if anyone else needed a lesson about respecting small creatures, he was ready and willing to educate them at any time. 3 days later, the Korvian fleet departed Earth orbit, their invasion attempt officially classified as strategically inadvisable. The official report mentioned logistical challenges and unexpected resistance organization. The unofficial report, the one that circulated through military networks across the galaxy, was much simpler. It contained one image, Emma, with Mister Chomps. And beneath it, a single warning that every species eventually learned to respect. Do not anger the humans. And never, ever insult their pets. 6 months after that, Earth was admitted to the Galactic Council as an independent world. They sent Emma as their youngest ambassador, with Mister Chomps as her official diplomatic companion. The first proposal Emma submitted was a universal treaty, protecting companion animals across all species and worlds. It passed unanimously. Nobody wanted to vote against the girl with the honey badger. Admiral Thex attended that vote. She caught Emma's eye from across the chamber and nodded once. Respect recognized. Lesson learned. Emma smiled and nodded back. Then she whispered something to Mister Chomps, who looked directly at the assembled alien delegations and yawned, showing every single one of his teeth. Message received. Message understood. Humans were here to stay, and they brought their friends.